Hey everybody, Sue Hitzmann, creator of the Melt Method. Today on our Tuesday talk, I'm here with Kara Thorson, owner of Yoga Equanimity up in Montreal. Hey Kara.
Hi, thanks
I'm,
for having me. I'm
oh
super
my gosh. Yeah, thanks for coming on. I've known Kara for pretty much my entire life, and I've watched you, develop not only your own yoga practice through Iyengar's yoga, but actually opening up your own studio up in Montreal. And your yoga practice is so beautiful and unique because you are using Iyengar's yoga, which yeah, I mean, really lots of respect for what's going on. I'm curious, how has the current closings and everything affected your business and your business model up there? How's it going?
well. I'm alone a lot more. So, you know, in many ways, no effect because it's like I had classes 5 times a week, and so in many ways, I spend much time alone anyway. But still, I don't have my people here with me at those times during the classes, and so it's lonely and it's sad, and we have really created this rooted and tight community where people are super committed. Like they'd be on their deathbed before they'd miss their class. And so it's like that commitment isn't there. And how do we keep in touch and how do we keep things going? It's ended up to be Facebook Live classes. And we've had already for a couple of years Facebook Live classes going, so I'm kind of suited for that. But now you're thinking, okay, if this is a permanent change that's going to happen, bringing things online, we're going to have to figure out how to do that.
Yes, indeed. And also, I think the thing that I've seen from a lot of people is everybody's now moving into the online sector, but a lot of people are just throwing it out there and now it's free. And the thing is, you're trying to run a business and suddenly you're doing things online live, but it's free to everybody. And how is that really going to be, sensible for a company that you have a studio? How I think there's like a give and take. The people are losing their practice and their live environment, but you're also losing your income and your connection to your community. How are you managing that?
Well, it's a catch-22 because right now I don't have an online platform with Zoom and such like that. It's always been in my thought process, but you think, oh, I'll get to it later. I'll get to it later. I'll get to it later. I'm doing what I'm doing, right? And so I would just use Facebook Live as my platform to do a live class or what have you and create a private group. But now with everyone online, it's cutting out in the middle of classes.
Mhm.
So I'm not comfortable charging people for that. And of course, many of the people that come here on a regular basis have been very generous and just donated, what they might have for a regular class or what have you, which is super nice. So they're standing up and they're doing the right thing, and we're all trying to make this happen together. But it's not your salary. It's definitely not your salary. And so right now I'm trying to figure out, okay, how can I present online classes and do it in a way that isn't scrambling, but doing it in a way that is productive. So, here we are, meet the resistance, here we are,
Well,
conflicting.
yeah, and I love that about your brand also, is that tagline of meet the resistance. And I've seen you persevere through a lot in your lifetime, and I'm sure that yeah, that you're really leaning on those things for this climate also. And one of the things I'd love for you to talk about, because you have such a keen sense of the yogic philosophy of Iyengar and how that's been able to sort of push you through what's going on, and how are you enduring that? Like, what do you see in the yogic philosophy that is something to remember even in these hard times?
Well, there's something to be said about tradition. And this is why you see all of these different yogas out there, and they are fun. And I love going to those core power yoga classes with you when I'm in town, and it's great. And they do touch on things that are touching. They keep the group a team. When it's hard, it's like, come on, team. And that's really important for us to remember, that we're going through an experience that's difficult together. And this is something that I can never lose in the Iyengar tradition. Like, I couldn't just throw out his standards for the practice, or his standards that weren't even his own. He just came up with them from the yogic philosophies. So a lot of the yogic philosophy is about restraint. And restraint is what we say yes to, what we say no to, how we hold on, how we let go, and vice versa. So restraint isn't just taking ourselves out of something, although if we have to take ourselves out of something, it's also putting ourselves into something.
Mhm.
And restraining that clinging to what no longer is. And so in this way, the philosophy is more important than the practice, or the philosophy is the entire practice, if we want to look at it that way.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's a great way to look at that also. One of the things I always think about with Iyengar's yoga is that, you very similar to what I do in Melt is we really do have this very hands-on type of practice. And we've talked about that, right? You're explaining something verbally, then you're watching your students, and then you might stop them and actually demonstrate something either on yourself or actually showing what someone's doing and saying, so how can we clean this up, and doing a demonstration, and then going back and experiencing it again. And now, it's like, I don't know what anybody's doing.
No touching.
Right? Don't touch me, right? And I think that's a big deal. This, what's going to happen now is when we come back to the practice, to the studios, what's happening with.
I'm going to be all up inside them. I miss them so much. I'm going to be all up in it. They won't be able to get away. But this is a really good point, because Abhijata gave an address at in Dallas in any event, and she spoke about yoga being an emotional subject and how we cannot teach this method without touching. And it was brought up because of the Me Too movement and how people just no longer wanted to be touched, or were confused about touch, or were thinking they can't use touch. And I can't imagine taking touch out of Iyengar's yoga. For me, it's there. No way. I can't not touch people. Anyway, I'm touching them with my voice. I'm touching them with my presence. I have to touch them with my hands, because how else can you give people hope? How else can you give them security and direction? So there is no doubt that touch can harm, but touch can heal. And if we have been harmed by touch, obviously there's not many of us who haven't had improper touch. And so my heart goes out to you, and you have all the compassion in the world. But don't let that be your shield for the rest of your life. Yeah. Allow the proper touch to come in. Allow the proper healing touch to come in. And so to now come back to your question, sorry, giving the online classes, now I have to figure out a new way. How do I touch them through the internet? How do I get them to have a sensationalized practice? How do I get them to feel something? And many of them, I'm sure, are remembering how my hands felt on them in an adjustment, or remembering how the ropes felt, or remembering how the belts felt. But they have a barometer. They have something to bring a sensation. And for right now, this is the creation that I can come up with in this conflict, and
yeah, I think that's a really great point too. I think, because if you could see Kara's entire studio, she's got all these ropes on the wall. It's this beautiful thing, right? And there, right? And so a lot of people don't have these props at home. So it's also altering some of the techniques that you would normally use, or these people are normally doing. And one of the things I talked about in a Facebook Live just recently was that it's not so much getting out of your groove in the first place, right? Like sometimes we all have things that happen in life, whether you have to travel or you're just out of sorts, but then, usually it's like short-lived, and then you come on, get back into it, and you go. And what I find with a lot of people who get out of their groove is that it's not the duration of the out of groove point. It's that then when the gyms open back up, when the yoga studios open back up, you jump right back into the level that you were at. And that's actually increasing your chances of injury, right? Because you need to, just like when you first started learning something, work your way back into something once you've been out of it. And I feel like there's something with the yogic philosophy. And again, you speak so deeply to the real philosophy of of yoga, the real root of yoga. Could you actually speak on that to, is there something helpful that you could say to anybody, whether they're doing yoga or they're a weightlifter or a runner?
Yeah, anything, obviously, right? Because as far as I'm concerned, yoga is in everything that we do. If we're doing it the way that it's supposed to be done, or the way that God intended or the universe has asked us, we're all doing yoga. And right now we can see we are not doing our yoga so well, because there's a lot of things that are out of balance. So it's like, okay, that tensional pull is not working out evenly right now.
Right.
And so how do we get back in there? And my newest study has been chapter 3 of the Yoga Sutras, the Kavalyapada. And it's about all the supernatural powers that are acquired with a correct practice. And they speak a lot about restraint. And restraint is what we say yes to. Restraint is what we say no to. It's how we hold on when we want to let go, and how we let go when we want to hold on. And so it's those opposing forces that constantly keep us in check and keep the ego in line. So many times you'll be practicing and you'll think, oh, I want to just keep going. I want to just keep going. I want to just get it done. But like, how can I sit there through that really difficult part and see if I can just get 1 millimeter in deeper? That'll make everything, when I go to the full range, better. And I have a friend of mine that I was in India with, Greta. I'll send you her information on Instagram. Watching her practice is like, because she's so strong, she's so open, she's so concentrated, and watching her, you see everything happen. And it's like, wow, there is the practice we can aspire to. There is what we can move into.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm hearing you right on all of that too, I think that there's just a point of, when the world outside of us looks utterly chaotic, what can we do to bring ourselves back into the calm of the mind, into the calm of the body, trying to self-soothe and to stay connected? And I think, as much as I tried to do some, Facebook Lives, just talking about the stress response, and I'm out in the Hamptons at my brother's house with the worst internet connections ever. So
out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Exactly. And so live anything becomes very frustrating. And I'm trying to talk about decreasing stress, and I'm getting stressed out about talking about like, what is happening? I can't work this way, and the kids are coming in while I'm recording stuff and walking past the screen. I asked my mom to say, my mom's here. And it's really such a time where, and also just watching the news is so disconcerting, because on one hand, the media sensationalizes everything. And then there's some things that you're like, maybe it's not so sensationalized. Maybe it really is getting that bad. And so it's hard to know where to go with what you're hearing, and then how to again come back to a place where you can find common solace. And that's where a practice, whether you're melting, you're doing yoga, you're whatever it is, it's finding that calmness in connecting first to the self, to the inner being that you are, and then to try to sustain your connection with the people around you. And again, you've had a real group of people that you've been with for a long time, and suddenly they're not there. I mean, you as a teacher, that's just got to impact you also.
Well, emotionally, yes. Economically, yes. It's, but I check in on this. Some of them, the group that I have on Monday mornings, all of them started yoga as grandmothers. Okay. How amazing is that? They retired all together. They've known one another for like 65 years. They're amazing women. They're not coming to class because they're in isolation, because they're of the age that needs to be protected right now.
Right.
And so weekly I check in on them just to see how they're doing. And, some of them have parents. And so fortunately, we're not a huge studio where 50 people are coming to class and I can't reach out to everyone. I can still reach out and have that conversation and that dialogue with each and every one of them and see, how are you doing? And for our Facebook Live at the end of the week on Fridays, I can do that. One of the girls that has been with me for about 10 years, maybe 12 years, she's in Milan. She moved this summer. And so we have weekly practices, you know, and chat and see what's going on. And you know, she had a hard week because it's been twice as long, I think, that they've been in isolation now as us.
Yeah.
And they got a hard hit, and she's had the option to go home, but she thought, okay, I'm just gonna stick it out. I'm just gonna, you know, everything is fine. And you know, we just don't know. And when we think about going back out there, what is that going to be like? How are we going to have changed? And my hope is that we now understand what it feels like to be that lion or tiger or elephant caged in the circus and trained, so that when we step our feet back out there, we have some more compassion for what imprisonment feels like. And hopefully we remember how much harm we do or how much good we want to do in this world.
Mm, that's great. That's such a great, so powerful. And then you're also a mother who has a daughter. Omaha is going to be 16 in just a couple
Quarantine.
Oh my gosh, quarantined at 16. What at 16 and quarantined?
Yeah. I mean,
how is she dealing with it?
She's remarkably well, actually, remarkably well, but it's you know, straining, you know, it's straining, and you wonder if they feel the impact until it's finished. And very often that's the case, right? We don't realize how critical or how closely we missed the edge, or you know, until all of a sudden you've gotten away from it and you're like, that was strong. And she's had 3 friends that have had their birthdays so far that are all in quarantine. My brother's girlfriend's birthday is today. And you think about, that's historical. That's something they are going to remember forever. Mm-hmm. God willing, if Omaha has grandkids, she'll be able to tell that tale. But who knows what the world is going to be like then? Like when we go back outside, it's going to be a very different world. We can't not have the experience that we're having right now. And what we do with that experience is really pivotal to who we're going to become when we're out of it.
And on that note, I mean, what a great note to end on. I mean, like, that really is right. I think that, you know, one thing that really is very powerful is that, you know, this is the first time where, you know, we're in isolation and not, you know, under our own accord, not for our own choices. We were doing this both to protect other people, to protect ourselves, but not with choice. And that's a big challenge. And so, you know, I mean, if you had to give one thought on the yoga practice of what, you know, what would be like your best say to people of what to remember in this time, so that both you, your parents, your children, whatever, we can all come back together to try to find that connection.
Conflict and creation. Asana is the perfect battleground for conflict and creation. So wherever you have a barrier, wherever you have a conflict, wherever you have a resistance, be with that. Get creative. Figure your way out of it. And that's BKS Iyengar's quote, not mine, but I apply it pretty much daily. And in fact, probably hourly at this point. You know? Conflict and creation, you know, it's a real thing. And we have complexity. We have the ability to complexly get out of situations. So right now we have to use our creativity to do no harm, or to do the least amount of harm that we can.
Well, I look forward to getting myself back up to your studio once it is open again. We'll do another yoga and melt class up there. Yeah, something for sure. And I'm sure that this, I keep saying, you know, this too shall pass. And, you know, we're learning a lot about how to control massive global issues and try to help society, and to not be greedy or selfish over it, but to really respect the connections that we have, so that when this is over, we can reconnect and find our way back to the subtle, kind touch and the subtle connections that I think are essential to human life and thriving in general.
Agreed. And I think in the end, I've seen much more beauty than I have disruption. You know, people are connecting. People want to connect. And I think, good, we haven't lost it. I remember coming back to New York after 9/11 and thinking, oh my God, is it going to be ruined? And by the time I got to your place, the cab driver had already stopped at 5 corners to help people get somewhere. When the light was stopped and he'd see people looking at maps, he'd be like, hey, you need to, and I was like, oh my God, they haven't been destroyed. This has brought them even better, you know? So let's just keep thriving, keep striving.
Exactly. Well, everybody, I'm going to make sure that I put all the information about Kara's studio for those of you guys who are up in Canada and when she does reopen her studios. And I look forward to seeing some of the series that you're recording, because like me, and not just doing live, but actually creating collections that can, you know, kind of be evergreen and be there for that lasting period of time that, you know, chances are this will happen again, and to get ready for that and to really learn from this experience so that we're more prepared the next time when it happens. I think that's always important, and to just stay connected with your community. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks. Thank you so much, Kara, for being on our Tuesday talk. And yeah, I'll catch up with you. And thanks everybody for watching. And more talks coming up next week. I hope everybody's doing great. Happy melting.